on the mat with us right now? Because a human can't do this. Well, he's doing it right now, and he's got your back.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was thinking about was I was on my first deployment to Iraq, and we were doing a bunch of ops. And look, at this point, I was very lucky because there wasn't a lot of people. That we were the only platoon in Iraq at this time. For a short period of time, I had the only platoon in Iraq, and we were plussed up with some people, but I had the only. Imagine that. All the SEALs, I have the only platoon in Iraq. So it's freaking awesome. And I remember, and then eventually, now the other platoon started coming in. When my other platoon started coming in, my commanding officer came in, and, we had a really good relationship. I'd worked for him before, and we had done a series of operations, rapid operations, really tight turn times, and got the targets we were going after. And I remember my commanding officer, he gave me some incredibly strong compliment. Now it sounds completely ridiculous. At the time, it was this, really strong compliment about what incredible, groundbreaking and all this stuff. And I looked at him, and I said, hey, sir, give me 24 hours and I'll screw it up. And the reason I said that is because on all these operations, you're like, man, so many things can go wrong. Bad things can happen. And I don't even, and we had already had some bad things happen. We'd already had some mistakes. We'd already had some things that should have gone different. And maybe they didn't quite leak out to, maybe we kept them inside the platoon. Like, hey, dude, what were you doing? Why were you over there? If we would have, if we didn't deconflict at that moment, you could have got shot. Like some things where we got away with it, right? We got away with some mistakes. And so he's telling me what a great job. And I just looked at him, hey, sir, give us 24 hours and I'll screw it up. And that to me is something I always tell myself. Always have that person whispering in your ear telling you that all glory is fleeting, because it is.
I think that lesson is it's impossible to say how important that is. And you probably know this, but every single day at work at Echelon Front, no matter what good work we've done, no matter what impact we made, no matter what the client tells me how great Echelon Front is, every single new phone call, every time I do the same thing I've done 100 times, I think about that. And that event I was talking about in the airplane, that's why I think like that. And I think like that every single time, every single day. I'm about to start off a keynote that I've done 100 times or 400 times. And I think, well, you don't want to screw this up. You got to get this right. You can undo all the work that you've done by not having this be as good as every other one that you do. So there's so much value in that recognition. And for me, being reminded that at my best, there's still somebody better, that I keep with me every single day in everything that I do. So losing is sometimes a good thing.
Check. We were about to jump into the next section before I went down that tangent. Education. And by the way, we're on page 6 now out of this chapter. So we're moving right along. Professional military education for Marines intends to develop creative thinking leaders in a continuous progressive process of development. Those are some words that people do not think of when they think of the United States Marine Corps or the military at large. Creative thinking leaders in a continuous progressive process of development. This philosophy aligns well with the kind of education Marines need to succeed in competition as well as in war. While the nature of competition endures over extended periods, like war, its character constantly evolves. Rivals continually strive to improve their competitive advantages, strive to gain the initiative, and strive to keep their competitors off balance. If you wake up in the morning and you just read that line to yourself, that your rivals are continually striving to improve their competitive advantages, they're striving to gain the initiative, and they're striving to keep you off of balance, that's a good thing to wake up to in the morning. Because it's real easy to forget that. Education is a primary method for Marines to sustain competitive advantage over time. I'm going to say that again. What's the primary method? Is it marksmanship? Is it battle exercises? No, they're saying education. Now, it's a primary, but a lot of people don't think that that even falls in the top 10 for the Marine Corps. Education. As Marine leaders progress through their careers, they need to develop mastery of the concepts that provide an ability to lead organizations like the Marine Corps through cycles of innovation that are essential to staying at the forefront of competition. These concepts go beyond just adaptation. They go beyond just, look, if you're just adapting to what's happening, you're wrong. If I'm just adapting to what you're doing, Dave, I'm wrong. I need to be making you adapt to what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm going to be on offense. They include topics like organizational learning, the ability for an organization to sense changes in its environment. Sense, not react to changes in its environment, but sense those changes. You know, lately I've been talking a lot about but just being more aware of what's happening. When people ask me, well, the home life balance, you know, how am I supposed to? Hey, the answer is you need to balance them. How can I help you? I can help you by making sure that you're more aware and you're more attuned to when things get off balance. You need to sense those things more. And you need to sense changes in the environment and improve its effectiveness and efficiency in response to those changes. Change management, when leaders are able to implement needed change in an organization while keeping its people engaged. And the difference between sustaining and disruptive innovation, which is essentially a difference between incremental improvements of what already exists versus new and better approaches that displace the old methods over time. That's what we're trying to do. It is not enough for Marines to educate themselves on war and war fighting alone. Such a narrow focus limits the benefit they can give to the nation. Most of a Marine's career will be spent training in the Fleet Marine Force or serving in a support establishment. Understanding competition and how the Marine Corps contributes to it is an essential skill, especially for career Marines who will have the greatest impact on the Marine Corps' competitive attributes over time. Self-education in social, economic, technological, and other matters beyond military history and leadership are essential if Marines are to excel in competition. Now, what's really cool about working at Echelon Front and working with all these different companies is we get to work in economic environments. We get to work in technological environments. We get to work in construction and manufacturing. We get to work in all these different environments. And what's awesome is when we can take what we know and we can overlay it into those things and get to see and get to learn how our principles impact even in this wide array of different environments. And that actually makes us smarter. Because when I see how a principle, when I see how cover and move applies in a manufacturing plant, and I see how it works in a financial company, and I see how it works in a sales organization. When I see all those things, guess what I know better? I know cover and move better. I understand it better. And that's what they're talking about here. The better you understand all these different aspects of what's going on in the competition between America and other nation states, the better you can see how your organization contributes to that competition and how you can better contribute to that competition. The goal for education then is to foster awareness with the campaigning mindset of how all capabilities available to Marines can fit into and support a larger competition strategy. It should improve knowledge of openness to the interests of potential and existing allies and partners. The outcome we seek from education is to increase the ability of Marines to envision greater possibilities in competition. Next section, talent management. Our doctrine of maneuver warfare places a premium on individual judgment and action. Wait a second, are we talking about the Marine Corps? Is everyone just following orders? No. We place a premium on individual judgment and action, which also means we recognize all Marines of a given grade and occupational specialty are not interchangeable. They should be assigned to billets based on specific ability and temperament. This expression of talent management found in warfighting applies equally as well to competing. People have different strengths and weaknesses. The organizations that compete most effectively place their people in position to use their strengths. Now, this is something we get asked quite a bit. And I wrote about leadership strategy and tactics. Hey, if Dave's really good at sales and he's not that great at administrative duties, what should I do with him? Well, I'll tell you what, you should put him in sales. That's what he's good at. Let him go do it. Now, does that mean you let him just ignore the administrative part and he never has to touch paperwork and we hire someone? No. We want to strengthen his weaknesses, but we want to utilize and capitalize on his strengths. They also coach their people on the development of their strengths and link their use to the organization's goals. Some people excel at planning and creating new designs for operations and organizations. Others excel at taking a blueprint and then optimizing it so it works as well as possible. Few have the ability to do all these things with equal skill. To compete at peak effectiveness, Marine leaders need to measure the talents of the people they lead and then match these skills to the duties they perform. Organizations that do this well and for a sustained period also have a sustained competitive advantage. They maximize the performance of their people over time. That answers a lot of questions if you're in a leadership position. You find someone that's good at something, let them do it. Force planning. Force planning, which includes the functions of design, development, and management of the force for the Marine Corps, must balance utility at many points on the competition continuum with building a force that is a functional tool for the joint force to use in winning battles. The output of this complex undertaking must serve the needs of competing generally and of warfighting in particular, realizing that they both exist on the same continuum and that they are interrelated shapes our overall approach to this planning. So we could take the Marine Corps, and if we only wanted them to be good at warfighting, we would do things differently. We would change entire portions of the way we raise Marines. We would get rid of certain parts. Hey, what are you talking about? We need to know marksmanship. We need to cover move. That's what we need to do. We need to be awesome at our tactics. We need to know how to win. We know how to interact with each other, catch people in the combined arms level. That's what we're going to focus on. There's a whole nother bunch of stuff that we focus on, that the Marine Corps focuses on. And what they're saying here is you have to find that balance. You got to be able to compete, which means we got to be able to go out and shake hands and make friends and build relationships. And we got to be able to fight. We've got to find out. We've got to balance those two, and we got to realize that they're both interrelated. So this happens with companies, where companies, hey, we've got to make money. We've got to make money. That's great. Guess what else we have to do? We have to maintain our reputation, because we can make a ton of money and blow our reputation out the door, or we can have a great reputation and now we're going bankrupt. So what do we need to do? We need to find balance on these two things. To do this successfully, the output of our force planning should present a dilemma to our potential competitors and defeat their plans against us. The way we combine our organization, doctrine, training, and equipment should produce a competitive advantage or multiple advantages. The options we choose within each of these elements affects our competitiveness over time. For example, if we enhance the training for equipment mechanics so that they can operate for extended periods without external support, then we also enhance our ability to operate in austere environments for a long period of time. The output of force planning is the sum of choices made inside each of these elements. These choices must be guided by the goal of establishing competitive advantages which are useful for combat and also useful for competition. Having that goal, when you make sure that you're sticking with your goal, you have to be guided. Your choices are guided by the goal of establishing these competitive advantages. That's what we're making our choices based on. Is this going to give us a competitive advantage or not? That's a very good way of simplifying your decision-making process. How is this going to give us a competitive advantage? If it's not, why are we doing it?
I mean, that competitive advantage is something you have to be successful. And when you're making the connection to business, is especially when you're sort of just looking at the most basic level of